Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Great to be with you on this midday show, and a fun one it's going to be, right? We got some NBA, we got some NFL. I don't know if this is the first time that I've done an over-under segment coming into or I shouldn't say coming into an NFL season. We're in freaking March, for crying out loud. Got 5.5 months to go, but we recently got, the other day, actually just yesterday, new NFL over-unders post-free agency. All the major moves, or at least presumed major moves in free agency, have already been made. So I will give you my top 5 biggest recommendation bets, so to speak, and of the return of a segment that is my favorite on Carving It Up during the football season. It is simply called If I Were a Bettin Man. It is back today with 5 teams, 3 overs, 2 unders that I would highly recommend if you are a betting man or a woman that I would definitely jump on top of right now while you can before the stock changes in one way or another. That's coming up in about 30 minutes. Also carving up the context surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks, why they are clearly not a championship contender and will not even get the Eastern Conference Finals. I'll detail that in about 10 to 15 minutes. Also, my top 10, Bryson's best 10. Give me a little interesting one today because y'all know I'm my man Dak Prescott. Got his bobblehead back here, right? Shout out to my grandmother for that gift for Christmas a few years ago. My top 10 landing destinations for Dak Prescott, because I think the writing's on the wall at this point. I think we all agree Dak ain't going to be a Cowboy in 2025. He'll probably play this year out. Talked about that on Monday's show. It's clipped up. It's on YouTube. And, listen, I'm getting pushback. I get it. But my top 10 landing destinations for Dak Prescott coming into 2 seasons from now. Difficult to speculate, sure, but nonetheless, we're going to have some fun with that. And at the end of today's show, of opening day, officially, opening day in Major League Baseball is tomorrow. I get the Dodgers and Padres played overseas. I understand that, but this is the legit opening day here on American soil, and I'll give you my predictions. Who wins the American League, who wins the National League, and who wins the World Series in October or potentially November, depending on how long the series lasts. That coming up at the end of the show at the top of the next hour. But first, man, one of the funnest games of the NBA season last night, and one that wasn't supposed to be. Again, more on the losing team in about 10 minutes for carving up the context. But the Los Angeles Lakers, in a thriller, beat the Milwaukee Bucks by a final score of 128-124 in Milwaukee. They actually sweep the 2-game season series against the Bucks, doing so in both games without the king himself, LeBron James. Anthony Davis was a man amongst boys. There's no other way around it. And a court that included Damian Lillard, a future first ballot Hall of Famer, and in a court that included Giannis Antetokounmpo, who I believe to be the 3rd best player in all of basketball, Anthony Davis was absolutely the best player on the floor on both ends. But AD, in 52 minutes, dropped 34 points, grabbed 23 boards, shot 12 for 31 from the field, and 3 for 8 from three-point range. Hit some big threes. Hit one that got a friendly bounce in overtime, which tied the game when it looked like the Bucks were maybe sort of starting to pull away just a little bit. I'll get to Milwaukee again in 10 minutes or so. I want to focus on the Lakers, though. This is why, and this hurts to say as a Warriors fan, because Lord knows I'm not exactly a Lakers fan. I'm a LeBron fan. It's much easier to root for LeBron now that he's in LA instead of freaking Cleveland. That said, no ill will towards Cleveland. But I've said all year, I don't care what their seeding is. The Lakers are a title contender, full stop. Even in a Western Conference, which is loaded. I mean, I saw today that we see Boston's absolutely just abusing the Eastern Conference right now, right? The gap, though, you compare Boston, the gap between the 1 seed, which is the Celtics, and the 2 seed in the East, which is currently Milwaukee, and you compare it to the Western Conference, which currently the 1 seed is the Denver Nuggets. The gap between the East 1 and 2 seed is the same as the West 1 through 9 seed. Translation, East isn't that strong, not to take credit away from Boston. I think they're going to get to the finals. But the Western Conference is all jumbled up. Oklahoma City's good. Minnesota, most people believe in them. I'm not one of those people. I'm a big buyer into the New Orleans Pelicans this season, and I'm a buyer into the Los Angeles Lakers. Denver, obviously, they're the defending champions, and I believe the favorites to win the title. And the Lakers can beat them in a 7-game series. Will I pick them? Of course not. They've lost, 8, 9, 10 straight games to the Denver Nuggets? But all of those games have come down to the final 5 minutes. And Denver has mostly done in those games what they do to just about everybody, and that's execute to perfection. With that 2-man game, Jokic, Jamal Murray, it's almost impossible to stop. Miami didn't have answers for it. Lakers didn't have answer for it. Suns, Timberwolves. If we're talking about the postseason run a year ago, and really the whole league hasn't had an answer for it all regular season. And to me, Denver, with respect to Boston, has looked like the best team consistently this season. But with the Lakers, if Anthony Davis is your second best player, and again, I firmly still believe LeBron is the Lakers' best player still. I still think is their driving force. I still think this team is barely a play-in team without LeBron over the course of an 82-game season. His leadership, his toughness, still is able to bring it in spurts defensively and still gives it to you offensively on incredibly efficient shooting. And again, is still the leader of that basketball team, gets the team in and out of sets, yada, yada, yada. But they have length. They have size. They have shooters. They have a consistent, at least recently in the last month, consistent number 3 option on this team. We know LeBron AD is the 1 and 2. We can argue about who's the 1, who's the 2, but those are the clear guys. Austin Reeves is absolutely the number 3. With respect to D'Angelo Russell, we know he's a 0 in the playoffs, like Jordan Poole level, defensively and offensively is extremely streaky and can be very, 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 very inefficient. Austin Reeves tend to be more consistent, a man of the floor. And if you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, really since they've started to kind of pick it up in recent weeks, although they leave much to be desired the defensive end as a team, not Anthony Davis, but as a team, Austin Reeves from October to January wasn't playing that great. He was averaging 15 points, right? 48% shooting. Okay, 34% from 3, but he was a minus 133 in totality. From February through what's almost done, what's left of March, or what's passed by of March, he's averaging 18 points a game, so up 3 from the previous few months before that, shooting 50% from the field, 43% from 3, and is a plus 69 in totality. So Austin Reeves is giving you a big minute. Austin Reeves, by the way, triple-double last night, was excellent. Excellent night for Austin Reeves, right? What would he give you? 29, 14, and 10. Hit some massive shots down the stretch, hit the go-ahead shot for the Lakers down the stretch in a game that they won in double overtime. When you have length, size, shooting, when you have a LeBron James, we know his playoff resume, it speaks for itself. And the questions for me about this Lakers team was never the roster. I've always liked the roster because of the reasons I just mentioned. I don't have any questions about LeBron. Do I expect him to be 2018 LeBron? Of course not. But none of us should expect that of LeBron. He's 39 years of age in year 21. The 2 key components. One, I still have massive questions about. His name's Darvin Ham. Pushed the right buttons last night. Props to him. Taurean Prince didn't get a ton of minutes throughout this game. I don't know what's up with his love of Taurean Prince. Nice player. Liked an Instagram post of mine years ago. But in general, not a guy you can play consistently on a team as good as the Lakers. But Anthony Davis, and I said years ago, 3 years ago, 2021, I remember vividly, I coined the name AD. AD does not stand for Anthony Davis. It stands for always down. Man, the guy just gets hurt every other game you watch. In his last 100 basketball games, folks, Anthony Davis has played 96. So in terms of durability, knock on wood that this continues for his sake and for the Lakers' sake. I don't know. Looks pretty good. And by the way, there's a couple times down the floor, didn't seem to be 100%, seemed to be limping. By the way, in a game where he played more minutes than anybody, 52 minutes did Anthony Davis play last night in the double overtime affair in which Giannis looked gassed. And Giannis is in incredible shape. Dame, in great shape himself, looked gassed. Austin Reeves looked tired. Anthony Davis just consistently going at him, being able to knock down perimeter shots. Now, I don't want him taking 8 threes in the playoffs per game. I'd like him to stay down low or in the high post, in the mid-range. But when he needed to hit those shots, he did. And on the defensive end, and I was texting my buddy Barry Grant Jr. last night. Shout out to Barry, All Even podcast host, massive Lakers fan. And I told him, I said, the fact that Rudy Gobert is about to get his 4th defensive player of the year before Anthony Davis gets 1 is a joke. It is a joke. Rudy Gobert cannot guard the perimeter like Anthony Davis. Heck, Rudy Gobert, even this season, is not the shot blocker Anthony Davis is. Anthony Davis is averaging more blocks and more steals per game than Rudy Gobert. And if we think about the playoffs, 80s had some stinkers. But can any of us name the big Rudy Gobert playoff moment? I mean, he was the 1 seed years ago with the Jazz. They had some good teams. They had Donovan Mitchell, and Quinn Snyder's a good coach, and nice shooters. Mike Conley. Rudy Gobert is nowhere to be found in those series. He'll be nowhere to be found this year for the Timberwolves in the playoffs. I don't anticipate them going very far for a myriad of reasons. But if this guy plays like this, that roster, once LeBron comes back, assuming he's somewhat healthy, they can win the West. Full stop. Folks, in the 4 years that the 5 years that LeBron James was in LA before this season, the Lakers won less than 40% of their games with him out of the lineup. This year, they're 6-4. So remember we used to talk about the Cavs all the years, like, man, well, LeBron's off the floor. Just pray that the team doesn't get obliterated by the time he comes back in the game. And at times, even earlier this season, I remember watching Lakers games against the Nuggets or against the Suns. Bron steps off the floor and they get pummeled. Now, doesn't look like that's a problem, assuming this keeps up. Now, again, my major concern for the Lakers is Darvin Ham. Because Darvin Ham prides himself. He's a defensive guy. Lakers are a bad defense. Indiana, I get Indiana's an awesome offensive team. Indiana dropped, 140-something points on them this past Sunday? That can't happen. Now, again, Indiana's a skilled offensive team. Doesn't guard anybody. But, again, I think this team get the right matchup. If the Lakers match up against OKC, picking the Lakers. If they match up against the Timberwolves, definitely picking the Lakers. If they match up against Denver, I'm probably rolling with the Nuggets, but if the Lakers somehow find a way to finally win those close games, because again, they haven't beaten the Nuggets in a year and a half, but how many of those games have been tight and just the Nuggets made a few more plays than the Lakers did down the stretch? Some of it's coaching, some of it's Anthony Davis has struggled against Jokic, which in AD's defense, everybody struggles against Jokic. The man almost never has a bad game ever. Win those close games. I'm sorry. That team can win the Western Conference any day of the week. And I hated to see it as a Warriors fan because my Dubs got a big win over the underman Heat last night. I was hoping to see the Lakers lose a game so we could kind of make up some ground on the teams above us in the play-in standings. It was not able to happen, but nonetheless, exciting basketball game. Anthony Davis was nothing short of phenomenal. We got to give credit where it's due. If we're going to call it, Charles Barkley called him street clothes. I called him always down. 96 of his last of potential 100 games played, he's been in his number 3 Los Angeles Lakers uniform. And by the way, I've called him, listen, it's appropriate. We can play it today. I've called him coin flip Davis. You don't know what you're going to get. Heads or tails in the playoffs. There's concerns there, and I still maintain those. But in terms of on the defense, I've never doubted AD on the defense. I've never doubted AD on the defensive end. In terms of durability, yeah, I think the questions about that, I think those can be put to bed now. Props to Anthony Davis. And I get the Lakers are sitting there. Oh, they're the 9 seed. Why do we care about the Lakers? They're going to get out of the play-in tournament because I think they're going to jump to the 8 seed because I think Phoenix is going to fall to the 9 seed because have you seen the Suns' upcoming 10 games? This next 10 games for the Phoenix Suns, who, keep in mind, are only 2 games ahead of the Lakers right now. The Phoenix Suns' next 10 games. Dead serious. This is insane. So tonight, they go on the road to play Denver. Then they go to Oklahoma City, at the Pelicans, home against the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell's back. Home against the Timberwolves, home against the Pelicans, home against the Clippers, at the Kings, at the Timberwolves. Like they don't play an average team the rest of the season. So listen, I don't buy in the Clippers in the slightest, but they're a solid basketball team. So I have a feeling Phoenix is going to flounder down the stretch, go something like 5-5, and the Lakers will go somewhere around the 7-3. That's what they need to do if the Suns go 5-5 at best. And the Lakers would therefore get the 8 seed. They'd beat Dallas, I believe, or Sacramento, whoever that game ends up being. And Phoenix would fall down to the 9 seed to play my Warriors. Houston's not catching the Warriors. Come on. But the Lakers can win the West. 100%. And again, I said, feel free to chime in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think about this segment or anything else on your mind regarding the world of sports or really anything for that matter. But this is why I said all offseason long, oh, the Suns got Bradley Beal. Here we go. Don't care. They don't have a point guard. They can't play defense. And Vogel, why I like Vogel more than most, is not as good of a coach as Monty Williams. I know Monty Williams' resume is not looking so good with what's happening in Detroit. Detroit was already a bad basketball team. They were. They have no talent whatsoever outside of Kate Cunningham. But I didn't buy the Suns at all. I thought the Bradley Beal trade was a massive mistake, and I'm being proven right on that right now. The James Harden trade, a few weeks into the season, even bigger mistake. I'm being proven right on that right now. The Clippers have been an average basketball team and a bad home team, which the Clippers will be a home team or have a home arena next year. Now, again, who's a Clippers fan? I've often joked, like the Clippers and Chargers, they have like 13, 14 fans or so in the city of Angels. So I don't know, but I maintain my faith. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of faith to maintain whenever I see what they're able to do on a night-to-night basis. To me, they're obviously the best team in the West. I like Oklahoma City. I like New Orleans. I think New Orleans, that would be the Clippers' worst nightmares if they match up against the Pelicans, because the Pelicans, Zion's healthy. They've got a great coach, Willie Green. If BI comes back, that's a scary team, rolling through it into mid to late April against the Clippers at least. And I still maintain faith in the Lakers that they can win the West. And as far as my Warriors, look, I tweeted last night, and maybe this is trying to speak stuff into existence. Maybe it's my belief in Steph and Steve Kerr and Draymond. I said if the Warriors go 9-3 in their last 12 games, then I'm in. Because the Warriors, we talk about the Phoenix Suns schedule is brutal. The Warriors have some cakewalk games the rest of the season. So they play the Magic tonight on a second night of a back-to-back. That's a tough one, but on the road against awful Charlotte, on the road against awful Spurs, I get Wemby will probably be there, but the Spurs are still a bad team. Okay, at the Rockets, Steph has not lost the Rockets since May of 2019. So my guess is they're probably not going to lose to Houston. They play the Jazz twice. Jazz have been playing horrible, about as bad as any team in basketball. They also play the Blazers. Now, again, they have 2 games against Dallas, who's playing excellent right now. They have the Lakers in what could be a huge game in terms of positioning in the play-in tournament. They do play the Pelicans, second to last game of the year, thankfully. Maybe I shouldn't say thankfully that's at home, because the Warriors are actually a better road team than home team. Try and figure that out, because I've been unable to. But like I said on Monday's show, I am this close. I was this close, at least, and still to a certain degree am. This close to selling stock on the Warriors. But if they go 9-3 down the stretch, win 75% of their last 12 games, then I'm in. That they can win the Western Conference. Because if you still got Steph Curry in the playoffs, prime Steph Curry, you still got Draymond Green, Steve Kerr pushing the right buttons. And if Clay can give you any semblance to what he showed last night, he dropped 28 points back in the starting lineup in place of Podziemski, which, again, Steve Kerr, knowing the right buttons to press. Klay Thompson looked good last night, and frankly has looked good the last couple of weeks. And so if he gives you anything similar to that, Golden State's in good shape, and they have an excellent bench, obviously. So, yeah. Again, the fact that the Lakers are 6-4 tells you everything you need to know about their depth, about their length. So plug LeBron back in. That's a scary team, no question. Transitioning out of the team that lost last night. And, I should set it up like this. So, again, Wednesday, carving up the context. For those of you that are new to carving it up, welcome. Stopping by. Carving up the context is a segment I do every Wednesday, where when there's a game, in this case, or a story, or just a topic of conversation that most are discussing, and maybe there's a majority taking a certain side, or whatever the case may be, and I try to provide context to either add to the consensus or push against the consensus. And so I started doing this in August, September, and it's become one of my favorite segments to do on the show. So it is time for Carving Up the Context. And as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, give me my theme music. On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking about the Milwaukee Bucks, who again lost last night in the game we just talked about, 128-124 in double OT against the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, Giannis Antetokounmpo he was Giannis, 29 points, 21 boards, 11 assists, 14 and 25 from the field, only took 1 3-pointer, but kind of ran out of gas down the stretch. Damian Lillard himself, by the way, 27 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds, typical Damian Lillard stat line. And hit some big shots down the stretch in some of the overtimes. But I have said it since about the midway point in the season, and it was reinforced once this team brought in Doc Rivers. I do not buy the Milwaukee Bucks as a championship contender, despite being in a very weak Eastern Conference. Because to me right now, there are 3 teams that I can plausibly see holding that Eastern Conference title trophy and facing the winner of the West this June. Boston Celtics, obviously, the Knicks, and the Miami Heat. That's it. I don't buy Philly. Call me when Embiid gets to a conference finals. Again, he is the only MVP to have never done that. Call me when Embiid does that. And because even though I do like Nick Nurse, Maxey's a solid 2. I don't buy the Sixers at all because I don't trust Embiid's health. And even when he is healthy, he tends to put up some pretty horrible performances late in second-round playoff series. Don't buy the Sixers at all. Don't buy the Cavs. They can't score consistently. Donovan Mitchell has yet to have a signature playoff moment, so put the Cavs aside. Don't buy into them. And I don't buy the Milwaukee Bucks. Here's why. Since they brought in Doc Rivers, and we could show the stats, by the way, all stats provided by our friends at StatMuse, all graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsard Jr. Shout out to Alfred, my guy. Since hiring Doc Rivers, the Bucks are an average basketball team in every sense of the word, down the list there, down the board. And I can read it off for the podcast audience. The Bucks, since hiring Doc Rivers, 16th in offensive rating, 14th in points per game, 15th in rebounds per game. Bucks got Brook Lopez, Giannis, Bobby Portis, middle of the pack in rebounds per game, 15th in assists per game, 12th in defensive rating, 12th in points allowed per game, 14th in net rating, and they're tied for the 15th best record in the NBA since Doc Rivers became the team's head coach. In every sense of the word, no matter what metric you look at, this is an average basketball team. Don't let the overall record fool you. Do I believe Adrian Griffin would have taken this team to new heights? I do not. The fact that there was this many locker room issues that quickly, that's a bad look. Now, I hope Adrian Griffin gets another opportunity down the road, maybe an opportunity for a team to kind of rebuild, an operation as opposed to taking over a championship-ready roster. Not many coaches can do that. Adrian Griffin's not one of them, but neither is Doc Rivers. I will say now what I've said for a long time. I've never seen a coach in my life. We don't give Mike McCarthy this for the Cowboys. I've never seen a coach in my life get so much runway off of a title he won now 16 years ago. George Bush was president the last time the Boston Celtics won a championship. Obama was in his first term the last time they got to the finals with Doc Rivers, the last time Doc Rivers got to the finals. The 3-1 blown leads with the Clippers. The rough playoff series in Philadelphia. He's blown some 3-1 leads with the Orlando Magic. This isn't just necessarily just a Doc Rivers segment, but more than anything, this crystallizes the issues with the Milwaukee Bucks. They're not that well coached. Did losing Drew Holiday hurt them tremendously in the defensive end? You better believe it. I believe strongly that Drew Holiday is the best guard defender that we have seen since Tony Allen. To me, Tony Allen, with respect to Gary Payton and all the great Michael Jordan, all the great guard defenders of years past, of decades past in NBA history, to me, Tony Allen's the greatest on-ball guard defender I've ever seen in my life. He was awesome. Holiday's not there, even though he's getting up there in age, but man, he's good. And you're seeing the impact he's having right now with the Boston Celtics. Do I blame them for making the Damian Lillard trade? I don't, because I love Dame, and I want to see him with an opportunity to actually have a chance to compete for a title, which this year I'm not quite sure if that's going to be it. And number two, guys like Giannis, it takes the Bucks once every, 50 years to come across players like Giannis. They went from Kareem, then they had decades of pretty much being an irrelevant franchise. They get Giannis, develop Giannis. You see what he is now. They had to keep him because there were rumblings, there was whispers. Giannis could leave the Milwaukee Bucks in free agency next summer. You had to bring Damian Lillard in to prevent that from happening, just like you had to bring Drew Holiday in 2020 to prevent Giannis from leaving in 2021 in free agency. And guess what? You got a championship out of that, so mission accomplished. But this has been a poorly handled operation from the start. The fact of the matter is, if you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm sorry, I don't think they're that deep of a team, at least as deep as they've been in years past. Connaughton isn't as effective as he used to be. Bobby Portis is still excellent off the bench and could give you a really good boost if he has to play in the starting lineup at times. But Michael Beasley, he's really just a spot-up shooter, and that's it. Again, look down the list at this Bucks roster. Jay Crowder, way past his peak days in the NBA. I mean, I'm watching this game. I picked up this Bucks-Lakers game with about 3-4 minutes left in the fourth quarter because I was watching my Warriors play the Heat. And I'm watching, I'm like, man, why is Jay Crowder in the last 5 minutes of a tight game against the Lakers, especially as you're slowly blowing the lead? Chris Middleton has not been the same Chris Middleton since the 2021 finals because of those injuries. Up and down the roster, they're either too old or their guys are just flat out past their prime physically. And they're not well coached. Now, Giannis individually is having a phenomenal season. Look at Giannis' numbers this year. He's averaging 30 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. I've always said Giannis is a much better passer than he gets credit for on 61% from the field. And for the record, he hasn't been as great as he has been in years past, but he's still a very impactful force on the defensive end of the floor. But when you're not as good defensively as you were 3 years ago when you won the title, when you're not as deep 3 years ago as you were when you won the title, and coaching is still just as big of a problem now as it was, I believe, then, with respect to Mike Budenholzer, that team won in spite of him, not because of him. Doc Rivers, even bigger problem. So I understand as weak as the Eastern Conference is, I get it. Boston's a clear-cut favorite. They should get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't want to say completely unchallenged, but the Knicks could push them. We'll see if they were to match up against the Heat again, depending on where the Heat end up in the play-in tournament and how that shakes out. But if they don't match up against the Heat, or if they don't have to match up against a healthy Knicks team, the Celtics should pretty much roll through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Milwaukee's in a spot where right now they'd have to play 3-seed Cleveland. I'd absolutely pick the Bucks because I'm sorry, the Cleveland's not going to beat a team whose best player is Giannis, second best player is Lillard. The Bucks have the 2 best players in the series, championship experience, and the Cavs have won literally nothing since LeBron left. So I'm not going to pick the Cavs to beat the Bucks. That would be asinine. But in the second round, Milwaukee would have to face, the Bucks would have to play the Cavs in the second round. My bad. But they could match up, as we sit here today, I messed that up. They could match up against the Cavs in the second round. But as we sit here today, the 6th seed are the Indiana Pacers. The 7th seed are the Miami Heat. Now, as the 7th seed, Heat, if that holds, in theory, they would have to win a play-in game. Let's assume they won the play-in game. You're telling me the Milwaukee Bucks are going to want to face a team that in the last 5 years has gentlemen swept them twice? You're telling me they're going to want to play an Indiana Pacers team that, while they aren't a championship contender, they're 4-1 against the Bucks? Because as bad of a defensive team as the Bucks have been over the totality of the season, they've been slightly better under Doc, to his credit. Still not the defensive team that they've been in years past with Giannis and with Coach Bud. But that Indiana team can score on anybody. We saw the other day that the Lakers haven't been great defensively, but the Pacers did, after all, just drop 140-plus points in the Los Angeles Lakers in LA. So I don't buy this team as a title contender out east. I think the Knicks are better coached. I think the Knicks are better defensively. I trust Jalen Brunson in terms of his ability to get guys in and out of sets. They have Julius Randle coming back. They have Mitchell Robinson coming back. They're getting healthier. They're starting to kind of find the rhythm. DiVincenzo's having a great year. Josh Hart is as well. Now, will what's his name? Thibodeau. Will Thibodeau run them into the ground, playing them too many minutes? Maybe. That could be their downfall. But if that's not the case, the Knicks can absolutely beat the Milwaukee Bucks. The Heat, I would pick to beat the Milwaukee Bucks because, they've done it twice in the last 3 playoff appearances, and they've done it quite quickly. Again, let's put up the numbers one more time. Since Doc Rivers was hired, middle of the pack team. 16th in offensive rating, 14th in points per game, 15th in rebounds per game, 15th in assists per game, 12th in defensive rating, 12th in points allowed per game, 14th in net rating, tied for 15th in terms of their record with Doc Rivers. Only 2 games above 500. And blowing a 17-point fourth quarter lead to the Lakers last night. 26-9 is the run the Lakers went on with no LeBron James. And for a lot of that's credit to the Lakers. Talked about that in the first segment. But that can't happen on your home floor. And you lose twice to the Lakers with no LeBron. And an inability to execute down the stretch. My guy, Barry, we were talking on the phone the other morning because he got pissed at a Kobe Bryant take that I had, the Jason Tatum comparison. It's on YouTube. Feel free to check it out. But we got to talk about the Bucks. And he had, I'm not going to say what it is. You'll have to tune into All Even Podcasts very soon over this upcoming weekend. But he has a take on the Milwaukee Bucks from a pure X's and O's standpoint that I keyed into during the game, especially during crunch time. Man, he's spot on. So I'll tune into All Even this weekend because this take on Milwaukee is absolutely fascinating when it comes to Giannis and Dame and how they fit together. Definitely stay tuned for that. I will play off of that take once he gives it first because he was the one. Listen, in terms of original takes, I'm not going to steal anything from anybody if they haven't given it publicly yet. But this Bucks team is not a championship contender. They're just not. And for carving up the context this week, once again, the Bucks not a title contender. Couple comments here from my man John Rivera of the Fan Perspective Podcast. What's up, John? And Doc, we don't trust. That's a good way to put it. He's not a reliable guy in crunch time. John, East is top heavy. They are better than the West. They as in the East or they as in the Bucks? Because I in a 7-game series, I'd absolutely take Denver. I wouldn't even think about that. Matter of fact, I think Denver could gentleman sweep Milwaukee. Think about the Thunder. I'd take OKC, but I'd probably take them in 6, maybe even 7. I think Milwaukee could push them just because of experience, because the Thunder are so young. Minnesota, I'd take Milwaukee, but I don't think the Timberwolves are a contender at all this season because Rudy's awful in the playoffs. Chris Finch has had some bad playoff moments. John said Eastern Conference. I see the top of the East, you could argue is better, but again, the 3 teams I think can win the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the Celtics is the 1 seed. The other team, my number 2 favorite, Miami Heat, they're the 7 seed. Number 3 team, the Knicks, 4 seed. Don't buy the Cavs at all. Don't buy the Bucks at all. John, Western Conference are young teams. I get that, and I understand that. And again, when it's all said and done, Denver may just smoke everybody. That is absolutely on the board because we saw it last year. Only team that took them 6 was Phoenix, and in games 5 and 6, the Suns got absolutely hammered. So take that into consideration as well. If that repeats this year, that could happen, and the Nuggets could take advantage of that. But I like OKC's coach. I think Dagnall has done a fantastic job with this team. If SGA wins MVP, I think it should be Jokic. But if SGA wins MVP, winning as many games as he has, the number 1 seed Thunder with a team that has a bunch of kids on it, I won't have an issue with it. He's clearly first-team All-NBA. No doubt about that. I don't know what it is, man. I really like the Pelicans. Willie Green's from the Steve Kerr, system, from the Steve Kerr coaching tree. The Pelicans pushed the 65-win Suns to 6 games 2 years ago in the first round. Brandon Ingram is a scoring extraordinaire. The big knock on wood, can Zion stay healthy? Which, again, kind of like Anthony Davis, let's give credit where it's due. He has been this season. And hopefully for the Pelicans, it continues. You have CJ, you have Alvarado, solid young bench. So I think, let me put it this way, John. I think the West has more contenders than the East does. Because, again, let me phrase it like this. I like Philadelphia's roster. Tobias Harris is a good 3. Maxi's an okay 2. And I think Nick Nurse is a good coach, better than people give him credit for. But Joel Embiid's next Eastern Conference Finals appearance will be his first. Again, only MVP in history to have never made the Eastern Conference Finals at any point in his career. And he's coming off of an injury, which has also been a concern. So Philly, don't buy them at all. Pacers don't play any defense. The Cavs can't score. So they're like the Cavs and Sixers, the Cavs and Pacers, which right now that series would happen if the standings hold. That would be an interesting series. I would probably roll with Indiana because I love Halliburton. He's playing much better as of late. He's been getting healthier. I don't know, but again, I think the East has 3 contenders: Boston, New York Knicks, and the Miami Heat. West, I think there's 5. I'm on the brink with 1 with my Warriors. I'm on the brink. I'm almost ready to sell stock, but I said if we go 9-3 in our last 12 games, which 1-0 last night, then I'm gonna stick with them. But the Lakers are contenders. That's 2. Nuggets, Pelicans, Thunder, Clippers. Again, it's Harden. It's that's no. Clippers are going out in round 1. If they get New Orleans, Clippers are going out in round 1. That would be an absolutely disastrous matchup for LA. All right. So my favorite segment on Carving It Up, and I hope you, the audience, again, ultimately my show means nothing if y'all don't tune in, give me feedback. Let me know what y'all think. That's why I love y'all for supporting the show as much as y'all have. A fan favorite, at least I would hope. My favorite segment on this show during the football season, which is when it's prominently featured, is a segment called If I Were a Bettin Man. I did it every Friday, or I do it every Friday during the football season. There's always one, I don't bet, but there's one game a week that I'm like, man, if I were a betting man, I'm all over this one. And last year, I forgot what my record was. I think I was well above 500, which is by most metrics pretty good. So it was I had a rough If I Were a Bettin Man in 2022, 2023. From my recollection, I think I remember doing pretty well on that. So I'm going to transition that, or bring that rather, to now. Did not think I'd be doing If I Were a Bettin Man and turning it into an entire segment in March, especially in regards to the NFL, but here we are. It's March Madness. NBA is about to conclude its regular season in a few weeks. Baseball starting tomorrow. My predictions for who wins the American League and National League at the end of the show. And the NFL still dominates the headlines because we got some over-under odds. So let's look at the first. Again, I have 5 teams. 5 teams that I'm looking at. When I saw their over-unders, they came out with all 32 teams. Again, no surprise. Teams like Kansas City, Niners, Ravens, like they're high up on the list at 11.5, and teams like the Patriots and Panthers are at the bottom at 4.5. So, without further ado, it is now time for my favorite segment. It is called
Bettin Man.
If I Were a Bet Man. I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending Super Bowl champions. Their over-under is set at 11.5. Give me the over on the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's why. So Patrick Mahomes is coming off of a down season. The Chiefs offense is coming off of a down season. Maybe you heard they won the Super Bowl. It happens to be their second straight and their third in the last 4 years, or last 5 years, rather. So again, a defense for Kansas City retains Chris Jones. The loss of L'Jarius Sneed matters. He's arguably the best corner in all of football, but I talked about on Monday's show, it won't be a massive loss because the Chiefs have a history of replacing defensive backs who leave in free agency and just drafting their replacement. Again, guys like Kendall Fuller, Honey Badger, both left. Chiefs were fine. And both were excellent players, by the way. It went on to have success post-Kansas City. That additional, adding to that, Trent McDuffie was the best number 2 corner undoubtedly in football last season. Now he gets to be in that number 1 spot in which we saw him in this year's Super Bowl, in which Snead had a rough outing against the 49ers. McDuffie made every single big play, at least on either deep passes or you remember he batted down the Purdy ball at the line of scrimmage with 2 minutes to go, which kind of saved the Chiefs behinds in the last couple of minutes of that game. So they have a number 1 corner. Defense is excellent. Again, they still have an excellent defensive coordinator. Spagnuolo's still there. Andy Reid hasn't gone anywhere. Mahomes hasn't gone anywhere. Kelsey hasn't gone anywhere. They added they added Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice, we saw him take some steps at the end of last season into becoming a pure, at least number 2 receiver. I think Hollywood will be the number 1 to start the year. Rashee Rice has the potential to be a number 1 receiver. So, again, it's at 11.5. I know that's a lot, but in a down Chiefs season, they won 11 games and won the Super Bowl and won 2 road playoff games in Buffalo and in Baltimore. There's no reason whatsoever that, barring injury, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. The Chiefs will hit the over. So again, if I were a bet man, take the Chiefs over 11.5. If John is still in the show, watching the show, I know he won't appreciate this one. The New York Jets over under. Again, let's play this one more time. If I were a bet man, do we have it? Oh my goodness, do we have it?
We're a betting man.
If I were a bet man, I'm looking at the New York Jets, whose over-under was set at 9.5. This is an easy one, folks. Take the under. Take the under on the New York Jets. Here's why. So I get the acquisitions of Mike Williams, of Morgan Moses. The big one to me is Tyron Smith. I thought that was a great signing by the New York Jets and an awful loss for the Dallas Cowboys because despite, dealing with some injuries and Ty Smith is getting up there in age, this is year 14 for him coming up. This is still a guy who's probably a top 3 left tackle still in the National Football League, up there with guys like Laramie Tunsil and Trent Williams, still productive guys. So Aaron Rodgers, blindside with Ty Smith in the lineup, will be safe. So he'll be safe in that regard. The rest of the offensive line, I still have concerns about, okay? Mike Williams has dealt with a plethora of injuries, and at that point, you'd be left with just Garrett Wilson, and that's it. You keep in mind with the New York Jets that in a season where an offseason where Aaron Rodgers said, we need to cut out the distractions. There was reports that he might be the vice presidential candidate, which, as we saw the other day, is not the case with RFK for the independents, but again, vice presidential candidacy, we know with Aaron Rodgers, we'll have even more to come over the upcoming 9 months. They still have the single worst, now that Matt Canada's gone, the single worst offensive coordinator in all of football, and it's not even close. They have one of the worst head coaches in football. It's certainly in the month of December and January. The Jets have been the worst team in the NFL down the stretch of seasons with Robert Saleh as the head coach. They have a 40-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles surgery, and you're telling me in a division that's got Josh Allen, a great Dolphins offense, and we'll see what we see from the Patriots, that the Jets are all of a sudden going to be viable? 9.5? Now, if it was like 7.5, 8.5, I'd think about it. 9.5 is insanity. The Jets are not going to win double-digit games. Not with that schedule, not with that division. Take the under on the New York Jets. To our next team.
What a betting man.
If I were a bet man, I'm looking at the Chicago Bears in the NFC North, who are going to draft Caleb Williams, number 1 overall. The Chicago Bears over-under is at 8.5, and I say take the over. Take the over on the Chicago Bears. Here's why. So Caleb Williams is going to be entering a spot where most number 1 picks don't have to. What I mean by that is this. The Bears don't have the number 1 pick because they sucked last season. They got it because the Panthers sucked last season in what was, props to Ryan Poles, one of the greatest trades that we've seen in the last decade or so, being able to getting DJ Moore, getting the number 1 pick last year and turning it into future picks, getting the number 1 overall pick this year, in addition to their 9th overall pick that they got from their own struggles going 7-10 last season, okay? But you add Keenan Allen, you add DeAndre Swift, you already had DJ Moore, who I'm a massive fan of. You've upgraded your offensive line. You drafted my man out of Tennessee last draft in the first round. You have a great defense, which has been great. It was great over the second half of the season with the addition of Montez Sweat. I have questions about Matt Eberflus. I do like Shane Waldron. He's worked wonders with Russell Wilson at the end of his Seattle tenure, and certainly with Geno Smith, who we know prior to Seattle was a bona fide backup quarterback. Working now with the guy in Caleb Williams with all the weapons the Bears have and potentially adding another. I saw one draft, them taking the kid out of Washington, the receiver. That could be dangerous. That could be one of the more scary offenses in the NFC, certainly with the lack of great quarterback play in that conference. I'm all over the Bears this season. I think if they are healthy, this could be one of the most dangerous offenses in football, and Caleb Williams is poised for a massive rookie season that I think could exceed C.J. Stroud's from this previous season. If I were a bet man, take the Bears over 8.5.
Betting man.
If I were a bet man, I am looking at the Atlanta Falcons, and this to me was the wildest one. The Atlanta Falcons, according to Vegas, their over-under wins is set at 10.5. That's an easy one for me. Take the under. Take the under. If I were a bet man, I'd take the under on the Atlanta Falcons. Here's why. I get why people like the roster, but to me, what this is eerily similar of, this Kirk Cousins to an already good roster in Atlanta with some nice young receivers, a coach that we're not totally sure about. Now, I think Raheem Morris is a better coach than the guy I'm about to mention. This feels almost identical to the Saints last year when they added Derek Carr. It was like, man, you got these young guys. You got Chris Olave. You got Alvin Kamara there still. You still got a good defense. Yes, they're in salary cap hell, but you added Derek Carr to a brutal division. I shouldn't say brutal division. Brutal in the sense of it's a terrible division. They could make some noise. And the Saints failed to make the playoffs. Obviously, Baker led the Bucs to that spot a year ago. 10.5, 8.5 feels like, okay, I would strongly consider taking the over on that one. 10.5 to me, the fact that I think expecting the Atlanta Falcons to win 11 games, and I understand that. I saw the stat today when I was, kind of making my decisions, which teams I think about betting if I were a betting man, that is. And over-unders, the Falcons this upcoming season have the easiest strength of schedule. Again, the schedule hasn't come out, but strength of opponents this season, the worst strength of opponents. Okay, those teams that they faced this season a year ago won on average 45% of their games. So translation, the Falcons are playing a lot of bad teams next year. I get that Kirk Cousins is absolutely better than Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke, or whoever the Falcons tried to trot out there last year after not going after Lamar Jackson. I think Kirk is still going to be a productive guy. I think he's going to be worth the money the Falcons pay him for the first couple of seasons. The last two could be a little dicey because at that point he'll be 38 years of age, a couple of years removed from an Achilles surgery, which is the worst injury an athlete can suffer. I do love Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson like everybody else does. But we got to see Raheem Mostert. He struggled in his last head coaching destination, and the Falcons last season really struggled to win close games. Could Kirk, heal some of that? Sure. But Baker coming back in Tampa Bay, those weapons are still there. That defense is still there. Watch out for the Buccaneers to potentially win the South once again. But if I were a bet man, take the Falcons under 10. 10.5 is insanity to me. The fact the Falcons, again, for context, you're like, what does that mean? 10.5. The Falcons over under 10.5 this season. They are tied with the Bengals, Bills, Cowboys, Dolphins, Eagles, Lions, and Packers. The Packers, who had a shockingly good postseason run, albeit they won one game, but they smacked Dallas. The Lions, who were a couple plays from getting to the Super Bowl. The Eagles, who got to the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. The Cowboys, who they're a regular season team, and that's about all they are. The Dolphins, same can be said about them. And the Bengals, who are getting a healthy Joe Burrow back, and the Bills getting Josh Allen. Like, to me, that is insanity to have the Falcons in the same class as those teams. So if I were a betting man, take the Falcons, and the under 10.5 is way, way too high.
Bettin Man.
If I were a betting man, finally, this is an easy one. This was not as easy as Atlanta, but darn close. It revolves around my Pittsburgh Steelers. The over-under, I couldn't believe this, ladies and gentlemen. The over-under for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024 was 7.5. Give me the over and then some. Oh, what are we talking about here? Listen, I may sound like a Pittsburgh Steelers homer. I understand that. And I've only been a fan for 9 months. But at the end of the day with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the fact of the matter is this, okay? This is a team that a year ago had arguably the worst quarterback room in all of football. You could argue the Jets might have been worse after Rodgers went down with Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, etc. But that Pittsburgh Steelers room last year was off. When your best quarterback is Mason Rudolph, that's a problem. And I like Mason, wishing him nothing but the best in Tennessee as Will Levis's backup. Nothing but the best of Mason. But Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph. Keep in mind, they threw a combined 13 touchdown passes last season. Russell Wilson threw that 2 times. But again, Russell Wilson, in terms of touchdown passes, recreated what the Steelers did twice. 26 touchdown passes for Russell Wilson. Is he the Russell Wilson that he was back in Seattle? Not by a long shot. Is he still a productive quarterback in the National Football League? Sure he is, if in the right system, with the right pieces around him. He shifted into a little bit of a glorified game manager. But guess what? Crazy as it sounds, that's better than what the Steelers had last season and the year before that and with an old Big Ben. And if Russell Wilson doesn't work, great. I should say great, but you're fine. High upside guy in Justin Fields can step in, take the reins with George Pickens, with Najee Harris, they just added Cordell Patterson, who's kind of like a wildcat guy. The Falcons used him like that the last couple of years, with guys like Jalen Warren and Pat Freiermuth, an improved offensive line, a defense led by the best defensive player in all of football, TJ Watt, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. You're going to tell me that Mike Tomlin, with the best quarterback room he's had in a half decade, is for the first time in his career going to have a losing season? No, that's not going to happen. The Pittsburgh Steelers, if I were a bet man, this is easy. Over 7.5. I mean, Steelers, just again, for context, the Steelers are tied at 7.5 with the Saints, Seahawks, Commanders, which I think is a touch too high, at 7.5 with their over-under. That, to me, is nuts. So, again, one time for the one time.
Bettin Man.
If I were a bet man, I would take the Chicago Bears over 8.5 wins, the Atlanta Falcons under 10.5 wins, the Kansas City Chiefs over 11.5 wins, my Pittsburgh Steelers over 7.5 wins, and the New York Jets under 9.5 wins. I am really, the Jets one was interesting. I'm really surprised that Vegas is still as in love as they are with the Jets coming into the season. I don't see this idea they can win double-digit games in a conference that is just chock full of elite quarterbacks and a division that has one elite quarterback, Josh Allen, and another productive quarterback in Tua, who has a great coach and great weapons. No, that's insanity to me. It's sanity. Okay, and by the way, interesting one. Here's one to keep your eye on. Raiders over-under for wins, 6.5. I would strongly consider betting the over on that one. Okay, Antonio Pierce fixed what for the last decade has been a broken defense. Offensively, I think the Raiders would be out of their mind, out of their collective minds to not draft a quarterback this year. Aiden O'Connell's seemed like a nice kid, won some games last year, but there was one game that the Raiders won where Aiden O'Connell's last completed pass, and he finished the game, by the way, came in the first quarter. That was their Christmas Day win against the Kansas City Chiefs when they just ran it down the Kansas City's throat with Josh Jacobs and company. So, and again, the Jacobs loss is big, but Devontae Adams is still there. The weapons are still there. The defense is good. Especially, I anticipate the Raiders, if they were to take Bo Nix or somebody, I anticipate that might go up to 7.5 to tie them with the Steelers, Commanders, Seahawks, and Saints. And again, those numbers will change after the draft, depending on which quarterbacks go where. The only ones I don't think will change from adding a quarterback perspective is the Bears, because we all know Caleb is going there. After that, we don't know where Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, Drake May, JJ McCarthy is going. I may talk about JJ McCarthy on Friday, because I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I don't get the hype surrounding him, and I'll detail that more on Friday's show. But I think it's I shouldn't say a little. I think it's a lot overblown. But listen, I could be wrong. I could be wrong on this, but more on JJ McCarthy on Friday's show. But shifting now to a segment that I also do, two segments I do every Wednesday, Carving Up the Context and Bryson's Best 10. So the discussion started earlier this week. I think it's sort of ramped up earlier this week regarding Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott and his future with the team. And that, according to Ian Rappaport, that Dak and the Cowboys seem to be pretty content on him just playing out the 2024 season on the last year of his contract and testing free agency next spring, which I, as a Dak guy, I'm overjoyed about. Okay, the fact that he's finally going to have an opportunity to potentially go to a team that's going to at least attempt to put a good supporting cast around him, other than just CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of Jags, as Bill Parcells would say, just a guy, Jags, around him offensively. And a good coach, by the way. That'd be nice to have Dak having that for the first time in his career. And a good owner. So I rounded up 10 teams. Now, there's more than 10 teams that need a quarterback this upcoming season. There's no question about that. There might be 15 to 20 if we really broke it down. But 10 teams to me, again, the segment is called Bryce's Best 10 after all. To me, there are 10 teams that Dak would do wonders for. The top 5 especially, I'd be very, very excited if he went to these particular franchises. So if we can get the background music going on right now to do Bryce's Best 10, because I think there are some destinations where Dak Prescott obviously into. And at number 10, the 10th best destination for Dak Prescott in 2025 is the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints, the 10th best destination for Dak Prescott. And here's why. So the reason the Saints are as low as they are is because that they are in about as bad of a salary cap situation as you could possibly in. Okay. Also, you consider the fact that Dennis Allen, who will likely be fired at the end of this season unless the Saints go on to win the division, which I don't anticipate happening. But Derek Carr, I've always been a Derek Carr guy. I've always thought for years he was like the 10th, 11th, 12th best quarterback. Turns out probably not the case. And again, I like Carr. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL. Probably not a franchise guy at this point in his career. So you add Dak to an organization, though, that has Chris Olave, that has Alvin Kamara, albeit he's getting up there in age, and an organization, Mickey and Loomis, that drafts very, very, very well. Good defense, excellent defensive leaders, good, strong defensive rookies that they've got on that side of the ball, in a division where the best quarterback as we sit here today is Kirk Cousins or Baker Mayfield. Take your pick. Dak's undeniably better than both. So in that case, Dak would be a good fit with the Saints. Only reason they're as low as they are, salary cap situation is nowhere near ideal. So for that reason, Dak would likely, I think he would take less to another team, another better run franchise, which the Saints obviously are. I just don't think he'd take that much less. Like, they probably have to pay him around $25-30 million, and that's well below Dak's market value. But the Saints, nonetheless, the 10th best destination for Dak Prescott. At number 9 in my home state, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are the 9th best destination for Dak Prescott, and here's why. So again, another organization, and they would be higher if Mike Vrabel was still at the team. I always consider the Titans a relatively well-run franchise, but the decision to move on from Mike Vrabel as opposed to their terrible general manager is beyond me. That said, the Titans have historically drafted relatively well on offense. Brian Callahan's there. We'll see what he does. I actually think Brian Callahan will do a decent job with Will Levis, but if they're still not sold, the Titans still aren't sold on Will Levis after the end of next season, don't be shocked if they were to be in the running for Dak Prescott to add a team that's got some nice, young, talented guys. Now, the problem for Tennessee is they're going to lose they already did lose Derrick Henry to the Baltimore Ravens. They're kind of in a rebuild stage, so for that reason, it would be tough, but Dak would be able to get compensated well. Again, Dak in 2025 will be 32 years old. So again, still in the prime years of his career. He's not going to have the longevity Brady did, because newsflash, nobody's going to have the longevity Brady did, because he is a cyborg and the great outlier, as I've called him for years. But Dak, under the current rules and regulations to protect quarterbacks, can have another good 5-6 years of his prime to be able to allow the Titans to build a good team around him. The Titans, the 9th best destination for Dak Prescott. I considered moving this next team up higher, but again, similar to the Saints, they're at a rough salary cap spot. The Denver Broncos. The Broncos are the 8th best team, or 8th best destination, rather, for Dak Prescott in 2025, and here's why. So, listen, Denver, I think, has one of the smartest head coaches in the NFL in Sean Payton. I think what Sean Payton was able to do is resurrect Russell Wilson's career. If Russell comes anything close to the 2022 season he had, his first season in Denver, trust me today, he is not a Pittsburgh Steeler. There's no question about that. Sean Payton able to resurrect Russ, get the most out of a guy who, again, as I said earlier with my Steelers, is at this point pretty much a game manager. But Denver, part of the identity for years has been great quarterback play and excellent defense. Dak would fill the great quarterback play. Now, the downside in Denver is because of the Russell Wilson contract, they're not going to have a whole lot of cap space. They're going to have a whole lot of freedom to be able to bring in a guy like Dak or pieces around him. So that's kind of the downside of it. But you pair Dak with Sean Payton, you're able to give him guys like Courtland Sutton and company. Again, another downside is you're in the same division as Patrick Mahomes. So that's not great. So, but again, in general, I think it would be a solid fit. The Broncos are the 8th best destination for Dak Prescott. The 7th best destination would be staying in division and going to the New York Giants. The Giants are the 7th best destination for Dak Prescott, and here's why. So, the thing with the Giants that I have serious questions about is ownership. Mr. Mara has made some really odd comments as of late talking about we're all in on Daniel Jones, but I also wouldn't have a problem if we drafted a quarterback at 6. And then we're gutted that we lost Saquon Barkley. Well, if you're gutted, or he said we're sick that we lost Saquon Barkley. Well, if you're sick, then why'd you let him walk without even offering him another contract and let him go to the division rival Eagles? That said, Brian Daboll, to me, the fact that he was able to fool the Giants and fool a lot of the NFL world into thinking that Daniel Jones was a franchise quarterback and get him, after only 15 touchdown passes, a $40 million per year contract tells me Brian Daboll's a pretty good coach. As great as Josh Allen is, where did he reach his highest highs? With Brian Daboll as his offensive coordinator with the Buffalo Bills. So my guess is Dak would have some excellent years with Daboll. He would obviously have guys like Jalen Hyatt, who I'm still Tennessee guy, go Vols. I still think has potential with good quarterback play to be successful. Again, my only concerns, though, for the Giants are I don't necessarily trust their front office. They made some really, really bad salary cap decisions, financial decisions over the last few years. But the upside is the NFC East look a little shaky. I'm not a buyer in the Eagles right now. I think their coaching staff, outside of their defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, is atrocious. I think Jalen Hurts could take a step back because of that. And again, they are going to have to let some guys go because they have so many young players on their rookie contracts on that roster. Washington is rebuilding. I like where Washington's going. They're just not there yet. Dallas is dysfunctional, as has been the case for 30 years. The Giants, you could possibly say the same thing about. So again, some things I like being with Daboll. I would love for Dak. As far as the organizational structure, I want it. That said, the Giants are the 7th best destination for Dak Prescott. At number 6, going back to Mahomes' division, the AFC West, the Las Vegas Raiders. I kind of like this one. The Raiders, the 6th best destination for Dak Prescott, and here's why. So I think the Raiders are kind of starting to build something. Okay, I like their GM. I think he's doing some good things in terms of the draft and in terms of free agency, but you're able to retain Antonio Pierce, okay, because he transformed the culture in what was a mess under Josh McDaniels. Is the offense limited? Yes. Part of the reason the offense is limited is not just because of play calling, but because Aiden O'Connell's your quarterback. And Aiden O'Connell, again, nice kid, is fine, seemed like a good backup, if that, to me. But you have Devontae Adams. You have Dak Prescott, Devontae Adams. You're going to get Devontae Adams is going to put up CeeDee Lamb numbers from what we saw last year and even the year prior with the Dallas Cowboys. You're able to give him a solid running game and improving offensive line, good weapons, and an excellent defense coached under Antonio Pierce. Now again, and the Raiders do have a lot of salary cap, by the way, salary cap space last I checked. Again, the downside, you got to face Mahomes twice a year. Now, folks might say, well, you got to face Herbert twice a year too. That's a concern because it's Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. But keep in mind, Dak's beaten Herbert twice and outplayed him twice in his house. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But the Raiders, dare I say it, may be turning a new leaf to a certain degree. So I think it'd be a good destination for Dak in that regard. Now to the top 5. And these 5 teams, I would be really, I like the Raiders. I'd be very excited if you went to the top 5 teams on this list. And this next one I think is going to shock you. At number 5, the 5th best destination for Dak Prescott in 2025 is the New England Patriots. Yes, the Patriots, the 5th best destination for Dak Prescott, and here is why. So I'm sure you're asking yourself, the Patriots? Bryson, you don't like the Cowboys roster. The Patriots is way worse. Correct. Here's the upside for the Patriots. Tons of cap space to be able to go out and get major free agents. Here's another big upside. I think Gerard Mayo and this new Patriots front office, my guess is they're going to do better than Belichick did for the last decade in the draft. You know why? Because Belichick, regardless of what you think about him as a coach, was objectively awful as the GM of this football team for the last decade plus with the New England Patriots. You're able to get an obvious upgrade at GM, a coach who is able to, at least from what I've seen, adapt to the modern times, a Patriots organization that, who knows, could trade out of that number 3 pick, as I talked about on Monday, upgrade the receiving corps, spend big on free agents, or next offseason, that is. But the key cornerstone piece, you add Dak Prescott to a franchise that's boasted 6 Super Bowl titles. Will Dak do what Brady did? I don't think anybody outside of maybe Mahomes will do what Brady did. The fact of the matter is this: Brady hasn't been in New England in 5 years, so the pressure for Dak to live up to Brady won't be what it was for Cam Newton, for Mac Jones, for anybody who's been with the Patriots for the last half decade or so. You've got an upgrade in totality at head coach. I believe in Gerard Mayo. You absolutely upgrade the front office. If Belichick was still there, the Patriots wouldn't even made the top 10. Now that they have upgraded in some of those ways, being able to hopefully ace the draft. The draft, to me, will go a long way in determining whether or not this will be a good spot for Dak. If they ace it, which I think they have the potential to, I think the Patriots will be a beautiful spot for Dak Prescott, which is why the Patriots are the 5th destination for Rain Dakota Prescott. At number 4, this is a fun one. I thought about moving this one higher. The Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are the 4th best destination for Dak Prescott in 2025, and here's why. So, if nothing else, Dak will look really good in that Seahawks blue. Now, those terrible lime green uniforms, ugh, I don't want to see any of that. The point of this all is, though, Dak gets not 1, not 2, 3 tremendous wideouts. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Okay, you're also able to have a good tight end if he's there in 2025 in Noah Fant. This is a Seahawks team. This is a Seahawks front office that has done wonders in the draft the last 2 years, in many ways, in regards to the Russell Wilson trade with all the first-round picks they got. They've upgraded their offensive line. Their defense, again, the loss of Pete Carroll does hurt. That's why the Seahawks aren't higher. We'll see what Will McDonald does. But this defense, Will McDonald, we saw what he did with the Ravens last year. We anticipate he has potential to do that with the Seahawks this season. And again, you look at the NFC West. I'm sorry. The Cardinals are the Cardinals. They're always going to find a way to mess it up in some way. They're not a well-run franchise. The Rams are, but by 2025, Matt Stafford's going to be 37, 38 years old. So that's going to be a concern. The Rams might be looking for a new quarterback and again, post-retirement of Aaron Donald. The 49ers are great, but if they decide to pay Brock Purdy top dollar money or top level money, top market money, then they are screwed because they'll have to let go of the majority of their key pieces, in particular guys like Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, guys like that, maybe even Nick Bosa. I don't think they move off Bosa, but we'll see. And Trent Williams could retire as well. I think this is a good spot for Dak. The Seahawks have been a well-run franchise for a long time. I did not like them firing Pete Carroll. Again, they'd be higher on this list if I knew what I was getting from Will McDonald, and if I had the confidence in Will McDonald that he's able to get it done as a head coach. This is his first opportunity. We'll see what he does with this new staff, with this new regime in Seattle. But that said, the Seahawks are the 4th best destination for Dak Prescott in 2025. At number 3, love this one, although I think the Dolphins should draft a guy. But there you go. The Miami Dolphins, 3rd best destination for Dak Prescott in 2025, and here's why. So again, if the Dolphins thought Tua was the answer, I'm sorry, folks, they would have paid him already. They could have paid him after 2022 when he lit the league on fire, but some injury questions. Well, he lit the league on fire. Sicily, again, led the league in passing yards, was top 5 in passer rating, his QBR was relatively high, if I remember correctly, and they still haven't paid him after 4 years in the league. Obviously 0 playoff wins, only 1 playoff appearance. Tua at least has had 1 playoff appearance at this point. We know Mike McDaniel from the Kyle Shanahan tree, great coach, okay? Gets the most out of Tua, gets the most out of the pieces he has in Miami. You have Tyreek, arguably the best player at his position in the league. You have a guy in Raheem Mostert. You have a guy like Jalen Waddle on your squad. And this Dolphins team has done a good job of adding free agents and drafting over the last few years. My only question for them is the defense, which I think is kind of on par with where Dallas's is right now. So that could be a concern, especially going up against Josh Allen twice a year. That said, elite offensive play caller, and Dak has been dying for that. All 8 years that he's been in Dallas, he gets more than one elite target, which a lot of quarterbacks are fortunate enough to have. Dak hasn't had that, I think, in 3-4 years or so. So for that reason, Dak would be a great fit, and why the Dolphins would be the third best destination for Dak Prescott in 2025. Lord Jesus, help this next one to pass. The second best destination would be my Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, my Steelers, would be the fifth best option for Dak Prescott in 2025. And here's why. So listen, Pittsburgh is a team that has been well-run. Doesn't even begin to describe Pittsburgh. They've had not one, not two, only 3 head coaches since 1969, since the first year of the Nixon administration, okay? Chuck Noll, what's the guy's name? Oh my gosh, Bill Cowher, sorry, brain fart there, and obviously now Mike Tomlin since 2007. So listen, Mike Tomlin never had a losing season. I don't put as much stock in that as others do because I'd like there to be an upgraded quarterback play. There will be this season, but Russ is only on a 1-year deal. Justin Fields, the Steelers are likely not to pick up his 5th-year option, so both guys could be free agents. And if Dak Prescott's on the market with Russell Wilson, with Justin Fields, unless Justin Fields lights the league on fire, something that Russ I don't think is capable of doing at this stage of his career, you're telling me the Steelers with George Pickens, with Najee Harris, with Jalen Warren and Pratt Freiermuth and all these weapons, with more to come potentially in the draft and in free agency, with an upgraded offensive line, with one of the best defenses in all football and the best defensive player in the league in TJ Watt. With this culture, you're telling me Dak Prescott would say no to Pittsburgh? You're telling me Pittsburgh would say no to Dak Prescott? My guess is if they come to Dak, if they come to Todd France, this to me is a prime franchise, and I believe this to my core, that Dak would take a bit of a pay cut to go to. Aaron Rodgers took a pay cut with the Jets. Okay, we've seen quarterbacks do it in the past. Dak's taken pay cuts. He's taken a cut in his salary, at least in regards to the salary cap hit in Dallas. So, and this would be a beautiful move, a beautiful relationship between Dak, Mike Tomlin, Steelers Nation, this Steelers roster, and this team with Dak. Folks, they won 10 games. They won 10 games with Pickett, Rudolph, and Trubisky. You put Dak Prescott in, who had one elite target last season, CeeDee Lamb, led the league in touchdown passes, and led a below-average Cowboys offense talent-wise to, I don't know, the best offense in football. You team him up with Arthur Smith, a creative OC. You give him all these weapons, George Pickens and Dak Prescott. Man! Please, Lord Jesus, let this happen. A year from now, in 2025, the Steelers are the second best destination for Dak Prescott. At number 1, the team that I chose, well, I didn't choose. I chose the Steelers over when I was down to these last 2 as my lifelong NFL teams last summer, and a team that lost the Super Bowl in heartbreaking fashion. Of course, I'm talking about the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are the best destination for Dak Prescott, and here's why. So I've been saying this for quite some time. This marriage between Dak and Kyle Shanahan. Again, Kyle Shanahan's the type of guy to get the best out of everybody. It's why I have totally sold all stock on Trey Lance, even though he is young and hasn't played much, is because if Trey Lance can't work with a Kyle Shanahan who's made Matt Schaub a Pro Bowler, who made Matt Ryan the MVP, who had us thinking Jimmy Garoppolo was good, who had us thinking Brock Purdy was the MVP of the league, and Purdy's clearly better than Jimmy G. Purdy's not the MVP of the National Football League. That's what Kyle Shanahan's capable of doing. You would have, again, this is another team that I think Dak would take a pay cut to go to because of what he has around him, because he has an elite defense, because he has guys like McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel around him, and again, cheaper guys like Juwan Jennings who have made a big impact in the Super Bowl. Juwan Jennings, go Vols. You give him these weapons, you give him that coach, again, in an NFC West that I brought up earlier with Seattle, that in 2025 could be teetering just a bit. Could have new quarterbacks, unknowns coming in the division, and you have the Cardinals, who, again, will always mess things up. In a weak NFC, to me, that is prime territory for Dak Prescott to go and win a Super Bowl. I'm under the belief that Brock Purdy, while he played fine, in the Super Bowl. You plug Dak Prescott into that Niners team for that Super Bowl, they absolutely win the game, with all due respect to Patrick Mahomes. Because again, Mahomes, this is why what he did was so impressive, was because that Niners roster was so much significantly better than Kansas City's roster. You plug Dak in, you're telling me he can't make that third down throw with 2 minutes to go? You're telling me he can't make some of those throws in overtime with an opportunity for the Niners to at least go up a touchdown before the Chiefs got the ball back? My guess is yes, no question, undoubtedly, no doubt. Dak Prescott, the best fit for him would be the San Francisco 49ers. The best destination for him in 2025. So we're going to look over that one more time. The 10 best destination for Dak Prescott would be the New Orleans Saints from 10-1, the New Orleans Saints, the Tennessee Titans, the Denver Broncos, the New York Giants, the Las Vegas Raiders, the New England Patriots, the Seattle Seahawks, the Miami Dolphins, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the San Francisco 49ers. Especially those top five. Again, show it one more time. From 5 to 1, Patriots, Seahawks, Dolphins, Steelers, 49ers. I think all 5 of those would be, again, in New England, it'd be a little bit of a rebuilding process. But one thing Dak too would get is a celebrity owner in Robert Kraft who's about winning. I'm in the early stages. The Patriots documentary, The Dynasty, which Tim Barnard has talked about at length on Boston Sports Summit. Check that out tomorrow night at 7 Eastern on the Grid Network. Shout out to Tim. He's talked about it at length. He's a huge Patriots fan, the Dynasty documentary. I haven't seen the documentary yet. I've just started the Dynasty book by Jeff Benedict. First of all, it's outstanding to the first 7-8 chapters or so. But it talks about Robert Kraft a lot and his business dealings and whatnot. This guy is about winning, and he reminds me so much of an older version of Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors. He will do whatever he has to. He will go to incredible lengths to put his team in the best position to win. I mean, there was at one point where Robert Kraft in the 70s owned a tennis team, and it was getting the best players all around the world to compete with his team. And so Dak's on the market. Patriots don't have a quarterback. If 2025 isn't a quarterback-loaded draft with all the cap space they have, and if they're able to ace this draft, I think that would be a perfect destination for Dak. They would not be Super Bowl contenders in 2025, but give it a couple years. If Gerard Mayo is what I think he has the potential to be as a head coach in this league, there's a lot of people speak very highly of him. Patriots could be very, very dangerous. Yeah, I get it's a loaded AFC with a lot of elite quarterbacks, but newsflash, Dak's one of them. Your favorite quarterback, Dak probably put up better stats than him last season. Your favorite quarterback, Dak got to the playoffs than he didn't last season. So, and did more with less than your favorite quarterback did, unless it's obviously guys like Mahomes. So, there you go. 10 best destination. And San Francisco, you plug Dak into San Francisco, my gosh, he put up Peyton Manning numbers. If he threw 36 touchdowns with CeeDee Lamb and that's it, oh my gosh. Be scary stuff. Oh, this is interesting. So I just talked about the Patriots were well below. I'm sorry, the Jets. My bad. That the Jets, I had them well below their over-under for wins. This is from Colleen Wolfe of NFL Network. She reports, quote, Jets head coach Robert Saleh and owner Woody Johnson got into a, quote, very heated conversation at the NFL owners meeting. I'm telling you, there is... I when I saw 9.5, again, as the segment goes, my favorite segment, Carving It Up, goes.
Bettin Man.
If I were a betting man, oh my gosh, while you can, jump all over the under for the Jets at 9.5 in 2024. That is way too high. And now the owner and head coach don't like each other, evidently, at least according to Colleen Wolfe. So there you go. I cannot wait till Dak's on in a better run franchise next season. Again, that is, to me, that's the best part about this, is that this upcoming season, Dak's going to throw his 30 touchdowns. Cowboys will win 11 games, I think, 10, 11 games, make the playoffs. I don't know if they'll win the division. We'll see what Philly does. But they'll probably go out in round 1, round 2. Dak probably won't play the best. Everybody's going to crush him. He's not worth the money. McCarthy McCarthy won't be fired. They just won't extend McCarthy because this is the last year of his deal. They'll bring in a new head coach. Dak will walk. They'll try Cooper Rush or Trey Lance, if they don't trade him this offseason or during training camp. And everybody's talking about, oh, it's Jerry or oh, it's Dak. There's kind of a two sides thing on it. The beauty is, in about, do the math, 18 months from now, we will know for certain. And that I can't wait for, because I am highly confident. And I think the data kind of backs it up to this point, and it will further do so once Dak leaves, is quarterbacks haven't been the problem in Dallas. Romo wasn't the problem. Dak's not the problem. It's always been, always will be, as long as he is, Lord willing, with us, is Jerry Jones. And it'll be even worse one day under Stephen Jones, because that guy doesn't know anything about football at all. All right. And what did Jerry say? He goes from all in, which we all knew was BS, then to, well, all in means extending our best players. Well, we know Dak's not going to get extended. Micah hasn't been extended. CeeDee Lamb hasn't been extended. Now it's, we got to win with less. Okay, so the roster that wasn't good enough to beat 7 seed Green Bay, now we got to do more with a lesser roster. This guy is, it is amazing to me. It is amazing to me that folks think that, oh, Dak's what's holding this franchise back. I mean, how dare he not win with the loaded Cowboys roster? This guy, I'll tell you, as a former Cowboys fan, this man is the reason I left. This man is the reason I left, and let me tell you something. I have sympathy, and I have compassion, and I have respect for Cowboys fans all around the world, because they're not just America's team, man. They're the world's team. There's a reason they're the most valuable sports franchise on planet Earth. Much respect to all Cowboys fans, wherever you may be worldwide, because y'all have to deal with a lot of crap. You really do. Transitioning now, final topic. Major League Baseball opening day is tomorrow. Now, again, the Dodgers and Padres did play overseas, but this is the official opening day. As a matter of fact, I've got my Red Sox hat here. We're not going to do anything this season. I have resigned to that fact, especially now that Jordan Montgomery, who is like the only guy I thought like we can maybe acquire in free agency. Now he went to the Arizona Diamondbacks, so now we can't even land that guy. So, listen, the Red Sox are going to be last place in the AL East. My man Tim Barnard put up a stat that the Red Sox are tied with the Orioles for most last place finishes since 2010, and the Orioles, regardless of what you think about Baltimore this season, the Orioles are absolutely not going to finish last in the AL East. Again, I don't buy into Tampa, but I don't see the Red Sox being better than Tampa. It's cheap front office, man. It's cheap. Tim, fellow Red Sox fans, I'm right there with y'all. It's no fun. At least Rafael Devers will do his thing, and hopefully Brian Bayo as well. That said, with my brief predictions for the Red Sox, I'm thinking like 78 wins or so, if that. Predictions to win the American League. So you look at the American League East, and there's a lot of hype. What's new around those New York Yankees? Oh my goodness, you added Juan Soto. Oh, Garrett Cole, if he's able to come back healthy, and knock on wood, Garrett Cole's able to come back relatively soon. He is injured right now, right? You got Aaron Judge coming back, and Giancarlo Stanton. He's lost some weight. He's looking good. Here's bad news. Brian Cashman's your general manager. Aaron Boone's your manager. That's what's going to hold this team back in the end. I still don't trust this bullpen when it's all said and done. Will the Yankees make the playoffs? Absolutely. Do I think they're better than the Toronto Blue Jays? No. I think the Blue Jays win the American League East. Yankees will be a wild card team and get bounced immediately. So I don't buy the Yankees at all this season. I think the hype is once again way overblown. And listen, last season was an abject disaster. Again, adding Juan Soto will certainly help. Adding some of their other free agent acquisitions, some of their free agent arm acquisitions will help as well. This is not a championship contender in the American League. This Yankees, I'm out. Big Poppy, help me out. What are the Yankees going to be doing this season?
The Yankees lose.
You're going to be hearing that soundbite a lot on the show. Just going to tell you right now. And so American League East, I'm going to go with the Toronto Blue Jays. AL Central, easy Minnesota Twins. Let's move on. The Central is, it's in rough shape. Kansas City, yikes. AL West, again, I think as much as I've been a buyer into Seattle the last two postseasons, they've kind of burned me. The Houston Astros are the clear-cut favorite to win that division, okay? Again, obviously the Angels lost Shohei. The Oakland Athletics are about to be the Vegas Athletics pretty soon and are... Again, the Detroit Pistons of Major League Baseball. That's probably the best way I could. Or the Carolina Panthers. So think of the single worst team in all the professional leagues. That's where the Athletics stack up to. But when you consider the fact that an already stacked Houston Astros team just added Josh Hader to their bullpen. I mean, that's it's not even fair. It's not even this the rotation's great as it stands here today. Obviously, Framber Valdez being their opening day guy, but the 7, 8, 9 inning guys are going to be absolute money for this Houston Astros team. Astros going to win the American League West, and the Astros are going to win the American League. I think this is this has to be like the 5th straight year I picked the Astros to win the AL, which I've been validated on that, 4 out of those 5 times. They didn't make it last year. Obviously, Texas knocked them out. But won the World Series 2021, lost the World Series won the World Series 2022, lost the World Series 2021. They fell short in 2020, got there in 19, fell short in 18 when my Red Sox came away with the title that season. But in general, obviously, we're going to take out the 17-year and maybe in the 18-year, 19-year to a certain degree. But I understand that there's some questions in regards to how they finished in the postseason last year, but it's still a loaded roster, well run. The Astros have been for quite some time now, and so Houston wins the American League. Out in the National League, it's a lot tougher. I think the National League has 4 teams that can absolutely win it all this season. Okay, and they're the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Atlanta Braves, and the Philadelphia Phillies. And obviously that brings up a big discussion in those 2 divisions. Again, National League Central, if you want to roll with the Cubs, you want to roll with the Brewers, St. Louis. I kind of like Cincinnati as a dark horse to win that division. That Ellie De La Cruz is a highlight reel if there ever was one. So for that, I'm going to go with the Reds to win the NL Central. But that said, they're way, way too young. They're not a title contender. Okay, so NL Central, whoever wins it, I think it's going to be the Reds. They're not going to win the to win the pennant. In the in the National League East, it's Philadelphia, it's Atlanta. Now, Atlanta obviously won the World Series 2021. Philadelphia got there in 2022. That division has been well represented, and that's putting it mildly in the last few World Series. The Mets, no. No. And the Marlins could make some noise, maybe. The Nationals are obviously in rebuild mode. Atlanta winning the National League East feels like one of the safest bets in Major League Baseball. The only one safer is obviously the Dodgers winning. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place right now. The Braves win the National League East is about as safe of a bet as the Dodgers winning the NL West. So for that reason, Braves win the East. Phillies are a wild card team. Dodgers win the West over the Diamondbacks. I've been hoping for this rematch for some time. Obviously, we didn't get in 2022. We didn't get it. Didn't really come that close to getting it last year. Dodgers, Braves in the NLCS. And I didn't mention that the Astros are going to face the ALCS. I think they'll face the Toronto Blue Jays. Astros will beat the Blue Jays in 6. The Dodgers will beat the Braves in 7 games. If Shohei Ohtani were pitching this season, I would pick them to win it in probably 5 games and do it relatively quickly. I think this Dodgers roster is loaded. The Dodgers are so similar to the Lakers, where I love all of their pieces. Their 1-2-3 is just stupid with Mookie, Freeman, and Ohtani. It's insane. It's Dave Roberts I don't trust managing the Dodgers. It's Darvin Ham I don't trust coaching the Lakers. So again, the 2 primary teams in their sport in LA, it's only right that it works that way. And Dave Roberts is my guy. Obviously, helped this team up here with pull off the greatest comeback in baseball history in 2004 and break the curse that year. But I don't particularly trust him, but I will roll again. And Brian Snitker is a much better manager with the Atlanta Braves. And again, their lineup and their arms, their rotation is insane, but it was insane last year when they lost to the Philadelphia Phillies. So I'll go with the Phillies. I'm sorry, the Braves beat the Phillies in a rematch and the Dodgers to knock off the Braves in the NLCS. I have predicted this World Series matchup year in and year out. I have been dying for it since 2017, a matchup between, as I call it, the illegitimate championship. I'm a big believer in not putting asterisks next to titles. My thing is, if you want it fair and square, injuries happen, man. That we can put asterisks next to over half the titles won in sports history if we're going to play that game. Okay, so I don't believe in that. That said, the Astros, we put a massive asterisk next to it because of the sign stealing scandal in totality. We're going to get the rematch in 2024, and the Astros are going to come out on top because I like their arms, like their bullpen better than the Dodgers. And I think they're better managed than the Dodgers. So Astros are able to get it done in 2024. Fair and square this time. The Dodgers do not get their revenge this season. So Astros win the AL, Dodgers win the NL. I know that's the easiest, non-controversial predictions. And I guess my big prediction is the Reds winning the NL Central. But other than that, I'm playing it safe here, and the Red Sox will be a bad team in 2024. I've already signed up for it. It is what it is. But Astros knock out the Dodgers. I'll say in a fun, down-to-the-wire 7-game series. Baseball desperately needs something like that to really kind of boost its popularity right now because, again, the two biggest stories in Major League Baseball are see-through pants and that sounds weird even to say, and the best player in the game in potentially in trouble for a gambling scandal, which, quick take on that, I think Shohei is not as guilty as most want him to be. This to me is a prime example. I was talking to my buddy Grady about this the other day. This to me feels like a primary example of athlete taken advantage of by person he or she trusted. And this happens a lot in sports. This happens a lot in entertainment by notable, young, rich people. And I think Ohtani feels betrayed, understandably so, by his now former interpreter. So I don't think Ohtani did anything that would warrant any serious action by Major League Baseball. So there's my take on that. So Dodgers win the NL, Astros win the AL, and the Astros win the World Series when they're second in the last 3 years. And they're third. Again, I don't really count the 2017 title, but they're third in the last, what would it be, 8 years now? Yeah, 8 years. So there you go. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the NBA playoffs, which is a 3-4 weeks from now. So we can get to that total. We're about 9. I think I checked 924 before I went on the show today. So let's boost that up. If you have not subscribed to the show, I cannot tell you how much I'd appreciate it. If you did, takes a couple seconds out of your day, down there, hit that big red subscribe button. It helps the channel grow exponentially, and you become part of this little family called the Carving It Up family. So there you go. And just as importantly, and again, if you have subscribed, thank you so much. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about it, your accountant, your boss at work, everybody. And just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast. We dare to be different on the Grid Network. And check out my man Patrick Brown, writing some fantastic articles for the Grid Network website. Check that out. It's on the Grid's bio on our Instagram. Definitely check my man Patrick out as well, and especially our content creators in the YouTube space and audio space as well. Shout out to Alfred Parcel Jr., by the way, doing all the graphics for all those shows in the Grid, including many of the graphics you saw on today's episode of Carving It Up Live. All right, everybody stay safe. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health, and please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. We have got to address this problem no matter where you lean, left, right, center. Have to address this problem ASAP because it's absolutely unacceptable in our society. No question about it. We got to do our part. All right. See y'all on Friday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Feeling good about those Vols, baby. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.